Earlier in the week, a Nigerian Air Force Mi-171 helicopter crashed near Chukuba village in Niger State. According to reports, it was gathered that the helicopter, which was on a casualty evacuation mission, crashed at about 1 p.m. The aircraft, which departed Zungeru Primary School en route Kaduna, was later discovered to have crashed near Chukuba village in Shiroro local government area of Niger State. NAF spokesperson Edward Kapkwet, in the statement he released, stated that the preliminary investigations have commenced to determine the probable cause of the crash. Joining us now is Air Vice Marshal Gbolahan Adekunle, retired, former Chief of Policy and Plans, former Chief of Training and Operations at Nigerian Air Force Headquarters. Good morning and welcome to the morning show.
Thanks for having me. Good morning.
Well, General, thank you for joining us. Two things.
Thank you.
The Chief of Defense Staff was saying, or was quoted as saying, that this particular crash may have been due to weather operations. But a terrorist group has claimed responsibility. The Dogogide, claimed that they were the ones that brought the helicopter down. But the question to an average man is, why are Air Force helicopters always falling from the sky, either for reasons of banditry or maybe operational reasons? Because this is one too many in my view.
Good morning again, and thanks for having me. Before I start, I'd like to join my voice with the voice of others who have prayed for the repose of the souls of our departed colleagues, and also prayed for the good Lord to grant their families the strength to bear these very, very shocking losses. That said, if we are to take the words of bandits and we then begin the words of the Chief of Defense Staff, who is responsible for overseeing operations using taxpayers' money to ensure that officers and men go about their responsibilities to the nation in safety and come back in safety. Whose words should we take? Now, I've seen the clip of what those bandits have put on air, and I've even listened to what they said in Hausa language, telling Nigerians to fear God. Now, a bunch of ragtag people who will defile the corpses of dead individuals, are those the people whose words we should take seriously? These people will take advantage of any opportunity to create the impression that they are winning this war for the hearts and minds of Nigerians. But the truth is that they cannot win this war. They continue to embarrass us occasionally like they've just done now, but that's where it's going to end. It played itself out in Afghanistan. It took the United States almost 20 years. We are doing more flying in terms of intensity now than ever in the history of Nigerian Air Force. Let me rephrase that. Nigerian Air Force was established in 1964. Between 1964 and 5 years ago, we had done less flying than has been done in the last 5 years in an attempt to bring this insurgency to an end. And as long as the intensity of your operation increases, the likelihood of something going wrong increases. I mean, even accidents happen everywhere. Football, a football team just bought a player less than a month ago. First match, the guy has been injured and is probably going to play for the next 1 year. So accidents do happen everywhere. But I want to assure the nation through your good self that the Nigerian Air Force is on top of its game. They are doing the very best possible in very, very difficult circumstances, not just for the Nigerian Air Force, for the nation as a whole.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Now, even though investigations, as I'd mentioned earlier, is being instituted to find out the probable cause of this crash, it's been said that it might have been due to weather conditions. And you talk about the Nigerian Air Force being on top of its game. What kind of weather condition? Was it that the plane wasn't fit enough? The pilot wasn't experienced enough? Because I would imagine that it's the best of the best. I do understand the act of God, weather conditions, but what kind of weather condition would have caused such a crash?
For now, I do not have the specifics, but there are a zillion things that can go wrong with an aeroplane. There are millions of little components that make up what you see flying in the air. And the malfunction, the failure due to fatigue, due to stress, by any of those components can cause an aeroplane to come down. Of course, how well you are able to manage it also depends upon a lot of factors. Did it happen at high altitude? Did it happen at critical stage of flight? And things like that. For now, we are still at the stage where the service, applying the best resources available, are trying to get to the root of it. But to say that an AK-47 brought down that helicopter seems a little far-fetched. I think they just happened to have stumbled on a situation and they're trying to capitalize on it. That's my humble opinion on this issue. A lot of things could have been responsible for the aircraft going down. It could be due to weather. When you say weather, was it that they were flying in inclement weather? Was it that they were flying without serviceable weather radar, which is highly unlikely? The crew that will be operating out of the environment they are operating from wouldn't dare operate without weather radar. These are highly trained professionals. We are in very, very unfavorable operational environments. So I don't see any of those people taking the kind of chance that will have led to the kind of disaster that we are faced with right now.
Okay. At first, I'd like to say big commiserations to the life of our troops lost and their families. Our thoughts are with them at a very sad time like this. But in saying that, we also need to know the truth, which is very hard to come by in society today. We have had instances where it's your word, it's the word of the authorities against the other word. A clear case is a couple of months ago, I think if my memory serves, about a year ago, thereabout, where some terrorist group claimed they shot down a plane that the pilot had to eject, and we saw the relics of the plane, and the authorities were saying something different. There's this story in the leadership newspaper of the 16th of August that captures, that says, NAF loses 2 aircraft in 2023 and 17 aircraft in 8 years. 17 aircrafts. The one that was brought down averagely will cost about $10-15 million to $20 million. I ask again, 17 aircraft in 8 years. 2 this year alone. They're just halfway through the year. What's going on? What is the truth?
The truth is that when you fly at the kind of intensity that the boys are doing right now, there's always the likelihood that something can go wrong. And things do go wrong when the level of intensity is as it is right now. You just gave statistics of about 8 aeroplanes lost, 17 aeroplanes lost in 8 years.
17 birds came down in 8 years.
I wouldn't, look, the loss of a single aeroplane and associated loss of life is terrible enough. But when you think about how often these aeroplanes take off, land in a single day, you will find out that the statistics you just gave pale into insignificance. Now, the thing with flight safety is that every day you take off and land, it's taken for granted. Today, as we speak, millions of aeroplanes will take off and land across the globe safely. But if there's a single crash, it becomes news. Flying it remains the safest means of transportation, but because of its sophisticated nature and the tendency for it to come up with unexpected consequences when there are accidents, we tend to overblow aircraft accidents. Nobody desires it, but the reality that we have as operators is that these are the unavoidable consequences of operating at the level at which the Nigerian Air Force is operating right now.
Well, I like your continued loyalty to the Nigerian Air Force.
I have no choice.
I don't expect that you will condemn, a system that you served for so long. But you're talking about very unfavorable operating conditions. Is that why it is so difficult for Nigeria to win the war against the bandits and terrorists? And do you think that the Nigerian Air Force, if it's operating under very unfavorable conditions at home, should go to Niger? Because the Chief of Air Staff was quoted as saying, oh, we have 72 brand new aircraft and we are on standby. We're ready to go to Niger. We've not been able to solve our own problems here. They want to send our brand new 72 aircraft to go and risk them, lives and limbs, in Niger. What do you think of that extension of involvement, and why is it so unfavorable here? Is it not just to fly in the air and bomb people on the ground and secure the space?
I wish it was as simple as you've just put it, Dr. Abasi. When you take off, you are going to a destination, you know that the people there you are going to meet are receptive to your coming. It's a different thing from when you take off. Before you take off, you know you are going into hostile territory. You are flying in an environment where people who are not happy about your being there are going to be waiting for you with possible shoulder-mounted RPGs and what have you. It's not the same thing as everyday takeoff from point A to B. So it is hostile. Secondly, Nigerians need to get involved. These people who are claiming that they are the ones who have shot down this aeroplane, they probably have been operating in that environment for quite a while. And they suddenly saw an aircraft, go down, and they went there and took advantage of it. Some people must have been saying them. When you see something, say something. That's the general maxim. Nigerians see unusual happenings in our environment, and we just let it go. Oh, maybe they are they've just chosen to come and pray in that environment, or maybe they've just chosen to come and stay in that environment for today. Let our people get involved. The people who are saying that they are fighting for God and killing innocent Nigerians, they don't take chances. They see any opportunity, they snap it. They snap at it and then, make life unbearable for people. But we, everyday Nigerians, will see strange things happening around us, would not report to the authorities, and maybe they've just decided to come to that environment. We need to get involved. We need to be supportive of our troops. We need to trust our government. We cannot elect people and then the moment they get there, they become our enemies. You are talking about ECOWAS. There's an ECOWAS charter that says if things like this, there's a change of government in a non-conventional pattern, ECOWAS will respond in a certain manner. And that is what our government has done. They haven't done anything that's out of the ordinary. And so far, have you seen any troop being deployed? Have you seen our soldiers, being asked to deploy into the Niger Republic? So far, nothing has been done. But what needs to be done in terms of response by ECOWAS leadership is what our president, who happens to be the current chairman of ECOWAS, has done. And remember, one of the surest ways of ensuring that you may never have to fire a single shot is ensuring that your weapons of war are at their sharpest, ready to be deployed. Show it to the enemies that, look, it is here if you step out of line. Not too long ago, 1981, I believe, when Cameroonian gendarmes killed one of our officers and 4 soldiers. I think Lieutenant SS Amosu, 22nd Regular Corps, I remember, and 4 soldiers. We were placed by President Shagari on full war footing against Cameroon. Eyeball to eyeball, we were ready to go. They knew that Nigeria wasn't taking chances, Nigeria wasn't taking it lightly. What did they do? They pulled back, apologized, and the matter was eventually resolved by the United Nations. Have we forgotten so soon? A president of a country has to do what he has to do. It's even more complicated when you are the leader of a sub-regional organization, as our president currently is. So it has to do what has to be done as leader of ECOWAS. They couldn't just fold their arms. If you look at the map of West Africa today, all the countries on the north fringe of West Africa are presently under military rule. I don't think anybody sitting in this studio wants to go back to military rule in Nigeria. And when your neighbors are busy eating cockroach during the day, if you don't say something about it at night, a cough and the inconvenience that will be brought to you will make you remember that you left something undone during the day. That's what Nigeria is doing. That's what ECOWAS is doing. The world has we've gone beyond the stage where a bunch of officers will just wake up and say, fellow Nigerians, we have taken over. Taking over what? If you want to be a political leader, take the political route.
All right, so I hear you talk about almost as if you remember the glory days. You look at the Shagari years where the military was fully kitted in order to face war against Cameroon. Would you say it's the same in today's Nigeria, especially how confident you are? I mean, we've had asked the question earlier with regards to this war against internal terrorism within our borders and the confidence in the military to actually, in terms of morale, in terms of equipment, in terms of wealth, just are we able to manage the current military situation, or are there any recommendations from yourself based on your days, in the Air Force?
You see, I'm glad you asked that question. The Cameroon incident I mentioned occurred between 1981 and 1982, if I'm correct. By 1985, we had the military take over again. Well, January 84. 84. Then 85, another military, overthrew the existing military government. And barely 6 months after that government came into office, he claimed there was an attempt by some officers, including Air Force officers, to overthrow that government, and the people were executed. From that moment onwards, I have it on good authority that government placed more emphasis on regime survival than on building the Nigerian military. The consequence of that is that by the time that government was leaving office in 1992, 1993, in fact, you can extend it to 1999 when President Absalom eventually handed over to the military. By the time they were leaving in 1999, the Nigerian military was much weaker than it was in 1983. I can say that without any fear of contradiction, because government placed emphasis on regime survival rather than emphasize national strength and ability to project power both within the nation and abroad. So now it's much easier to damage than to repair. Since 1999, successive civilian leadership have been trying to rebuild the Nigerian military back to its pre-1984 January days. And that's what we are contending with right now. Moreover, bear in mind what you could buy for $1 million in 1983 will probably cost you $4 or $5 million right now. And the quantum of naira you needed in 1983 compared to now, there's a huge gulf. So it's a problem not just for the Nigerian, it's a problem for us as a nation. We have to make the very best of everything that's available to us.
But a lot of people, and you are the military impresario, I don't know anything, I'm just a buff of history, A lot of people will argue with you otherwise and say, oh, there's another argument that says just that the military has not been tested. Because, okay, prior to the Civil War, the first major conflict that the military was tested was the Congo incident. After the Congo incident, then the Civil War, then peacetime, then probably you would say Metesani, which was nothing because those were Bo and Haru carrying, insurgents or some sort. But people will now argue further with you that you said, yes, there was a focus on regime, protection and all of that. But this same force you said was not good enough was what prosecuted ECOMOG. And there were a lot of military spending went into that time. And this resurgence of Boko Haram, they started over 10 years ago, and we've not been able to nip it in the bud because when you look at it, the type of warfare is different. What do you say to those arguments?
Good. You practically provided the answer yourself. The type of warfare we are contending with is different. We are not talking of one army against another. We are talking of a situation where, Rufai, your sister that you live in the same house with may be a member of Boko Haram and you will not know it.
But we also fought scanty militia groups in the ECOMOG wars.
It's not the same thing. When you are fighting to defend or capture territory, it's different from when you are living inside a house and a member of your family is saying in the name of God, he has to destroy you. All he needs to do is to go and get one IED somewhere and plant inside the house. It's a different thing. This is an information. This is a war that is more of information, war. It's
so
supposed to be information driven.
We're all in this together.
We all have to be. Okay. If we are not in this together, the nation will be doomed.
Thank you so much. We're all in this together. Dr. Bati, before
we go. Earlier today, we were talking about the Minister of Defense named by President Tinubu. And the argument is that why make a civilian Minister of Defense? How do you feel as a military person, having a civilian, Albert, a former governor, former governor of Jigawa State as Minister of Defense? Do you think that the service chiefs will feel comfortable? What do you call us again? Bloody civilians.
Nigeria's first defense minister, if I'm right, Ribadu.
Yes.
He never served in the military. And those were that was the time we looked America in the eye and said, nobody will compel us to sign a security agreement with any nation. And Nigeria refused. Look, it's not about who does what. It's a question of doing what is right. The president has information at his disposal that you and I may not have access to. For him to take that decision, I think it's way too early in the day to start scoring the president on practically every step he has taken. In my books, I'll give any government 2 clear years. Yeah, we want to look at,
But we don't have that time. We can't afford that time.
Listen, you may want to look at the early signs. The early signs, we want to see a government comes out with a policy, it sees how the people respond to it, and if it's unfavorable, it goes back and corrects. Is this government doing that? I'll take it. Has the government been responsive to the hearing of people? They've rolled out this policy on subsidy removal, and it's having negative effects on practically everybody. Everybody is broke, or maybe you have Naira, but its purchasing power is practically, gone. But things are being done about it. It's too early in my books to, start close marking the government. I think we should give this government 2 years. I'm talking of long-term policy issues, not,
I said like General, by 2 years time, they will be preparing for the next election.
So you can't give them 2 years, General.
But you see, you can't say in 2 years' time, you'll be looking forward to election. That's one of the reasons why they are much, as bad as they may be, they are much better than military rule.
Well, thank you.
It must never happen again.
Yes, we agree on that.
Thank you, sir. Air Vice Marshal Gbolahan Adekunle, retired. Thank you for speaking to us this morning on the morning show.